Thank you, Madam President. Before I get into my topic of my speech today, I just put a tweet out about what I think about the surveillance, the balloons, which are very, very concerning. Being on the Armed Services Committee, the Chinese surveillance over our skies are very concerning, but also the fentanyl from China pouring across our borders every day that are killing 300 Americans a day. That's also very concerning. And also the 800% increase in Chinese nationals crossing our border every day. So I think we've got a lot of problems other than just balloons flying around our sky. We need to recognize that. We need to start understanding we have an adversary in China that is our biggest, and the President of the United States, he obviously needs to protect our air, but he needs to protect our borders. We're having people die every day. What's the most important? The most important thing is protecting the sovereignty of our country. And that's our borders in the sky and protecting our people on the ground, especially from this deadly drug. So I just wanted to say that before I get into my speech, because I know it's important. China is our #1 adversary, and we need to start watching every part of it and still watching these balloons fly around the sky that we have no clue of what they're doing or why they're here. So, Madam President, my Democratic colleagues frequently say conservatives are radical in order to score political points. Even President Biden has used his office to attack conservatives with language I won't give more airtime by repeating here at this time. Liberals do this to scare Americans into ignoring the failures of their own policies and distract voters from how extreme they've come. This was on full display in last week's State of the Union address as President Biden misled the country about Republican ideas and straight up twisted the facts of his own agenda. President Biden sold the state of the nation as perfectly fine, ignoring many of the issues Americans care most about. The reality is, President Biden and my colleagues on the far left are sometimes way, way out of touch with what the American people believe in. Democrats frequently reject common sense proposals but support extreme policies put forth by the far, far left wing of their party. Liberal representatives have to do this because they're aligned with a woke mob that will cancel them if they disagree. Although that far left mob is very vocal, they don't represent the vast majority of Americans. But sadly, President Biden's position on the border, the economy, crime, and energy have all fallen victim to this trap set by the progressive ideas of the left. And his administration is set on taking this country apart from the inside out. We're dying from the inside out, using far left, even socialist ideas that have not and will not ever work in the United States of America. Democrats are misusing the federal government to get their way regardless of what the law, the Constitution, or the American people have to say. No issue shows the radical drift of this administration better than abortion. A very tough and a very important topic. The far left attacks pro-life Americans, and they distract from the fact that their views that go well beyond the beliefs of most Americans and most civilized people around the world. The Biden administration supports an extreme, heartless, and an inhumane abortion agenda. The Democrats today believe in abortion at any time, for any reason, with no restrictions or regard for human life. I am proud to be pro-life for many reasons, including my faith, another thing that I will not set aside for political correctness. However, even without considering religion A society that allows abortion up to and past the moment of birth, after the baby has been born, isn't progressive, it's barbaric, and it's murder. When the Supreme Court ruled that abortion should be left up to the people, this administration went into overdrive to force their agenda onto every American. Now, to be clear, the Supreme Court ruling did not make abortion illegal. It said we're going to send it back to the states where it can be more closely decided by the voters. Let the voters decide it. That's how we do it in the United States of America, because it's an issue that should not be left up to the federal government or to a court. The people should decide it. That's what we should do here. That's what we've always done. The Biden administration is attempting to use, at this time now, our military, our Veterans Affairs facilities, your taxpayer dollars, maybe even a ridiculous new public health emergency in the very future to go at this agenda, all to make sure there is unrestricted access to ending the life of an unborn child. That is extreme. Let's look at how this administration is trying to skirt the law and ignore the Supreme Court and how it will impose the law. Last summer, the Department of Defense claimed that the decision to overturn Roe would have serious impacts on our military readiness, extreme impacts. Of course, they provided no real evidence to back up this claim. But as usual, they laid out a radical plan to use our military resources to fly folks around the country to get abortions on taxpayer money. American taxpayers are expected to pay for time off, support, and travel costs for service members and their dependents. For years, the military has funded abortions in 3 different cases: rape, incest, and a threat to the life of the mother. The new policy that the Department of Defense wants to put forward throws all those restrictions out the door and opens military-facilitated abortion services to millions and millions more people. It's ridiculous, it's against the law, and they know it. That's why they've refused to answer questions asked by members of Congress when we doubted these plans. Department of Defense stonewalled all of our requests for a briefing for months this past fall, only giving us answers that, after I held up their nominations, to force their hand. They were forced to do it. Those answers were shocking once we had the briefing. The Department of Defense leaders claimed overturning Roe would severely impact military readiness, but the department has averaged less than 20 abortions per year for many, many years. Averaged only 20. So does this potentially restricting less than 20 procedures a year sound like a threat to our military readiness? It does not. This isn't about readiness, it's about politics. The new policy would put the American people on the hook to pay for thousands and thousands of abortion trips every year with no clear restrictions. Of course, they have no idea how much it's going to cost the American taxpayer. The Department of Defense isn't the only department seeking to expand abortion access. Last year, the Department of Veterans Affairs announced a similar policy. Like the Department of Defense, the VA is attempting to circumvent the Supreme Court decision. The VA began performing abortions at taxpayer-funded medical facilities across the country due to the so-called crisis created by common sense restrictions. This includes states like my home state of Alabama, where, by the way, abortion is illegal. Never mind that the federal law prohibits the use of VA facilities for abortions. Never mind that. Never mind that the Supreme Court ruled that states can pass their own laws regulating the issue, and that's what the Supreme Court says. Never mind that the VA provided no protections for staff who may have religious objections to performing these priorities and procedures. And never mind cost to taxpayers, impact on veterans, and the will of the American people. Never mind all that. The VA providing abortions is against the law. Absolutely against the law. It's an unconstitutional abuse of the government, and it should not be tolerated. Last week, more than half of the Republican conference in the Senate and dozens of lawmakers in the House joined me in introducing a resolution disapproving of the VA rule allowing abortion on demand. Our resolution defends the law, the unborn, our veterans who depend on the VA for their health care. Soon, we will force a vote on this resolution because the American people deserve to know where each senator in this room stands on the law and protecting life or with abortion at any time. The people need to know that and where everybody stands. This extreme abortion madness does not appear to be stopping with the military and the VA. The Biden Department of Health and Human Services is reportedly considering declaring a public health emergency on abortion. It's an emergency. The idea would be laughable if it wasn't so seriously wrong for our country. Of course, this is just another power grab. The public health emergency frees up extra money and gives the federal government more control. Why else would they do it? It's just like the sham of the COVID declaration we're still living under somehow. We still have a declaration of emergency. There is no emergency because Roe v. Wade was overturned. Democrats just think giving Americans the power to self-govern is some kind of crisis. And President Biden seems set on forcing taxpayers to fund an abortion agenda that is completely out of step with the American people. Only 19% of Americans support late-term abortion, and a majority support a 15-week ban. But you probably haven't heard that because pro-life Americans are often silenced. No more. We will not be silent. We believe every American, including the unborn, has a right to life. We believe in the authority of the Supreme Court, who made the issue very clear last year. Let the states decide what each voter wants. We believe our military and VA should be focused on national defense and veterans, not politics. And we believe in a government that works within the law. Using our military and fake emergencies to make sure there are no limits on abortion is absolutely, positively shameful. I will never bow to the mob saying otherwise. It's embarrassing to our country. And I encourage all Americans who believe in the value of human life to stand up and join me. Madam President, I yield the floor.